I'm actually doing well, but it's still a recovery process because of the procedure they use to help me recover. They use a process called ECMO, which is where they hook me up to, it's like a life support machine that adds oxygen to my blood so I can stay alive. But in doing that, they actually have to make quite a few incisions that cause some nerve damage to my leg, and it's a tedious process to make sure that my legs are not injured or anything like this, and I have to always be careful. And just the experience itself actually worsens some of this, some of my, I guess, sleeping habits. I don't think I'm not able to actually sleep for too long, but when I do sleep, I tend to actually have a difficult time staying awake. So it's always a weird process of how my brain works differently now, and it's actually just a new experience dealing with it because the main thing my family had pointed out to me during the past year and a half after the experience is that my demeanor and overall reactions to what I normally used to do have changed. So in a sense, I did recover, but I am not fully the same person because of the experience. Back in during that time, the area around the house was overgrown with dried vegetation of bushes and other like dog houses, building materials. And during that time, I was actually cleaning out the shed to hopefully rebuild parts of it that were damaged in a storm a couple months before then. And I guess during that time there was a lot of inactivity that allowed for mouse to actually start roaming through and building houses within that shed. And as I was cleaning in there, I noticed the mouse droppings, and remembering back when I was a kid, I think 94 and 95, they had these, what do they call them, PSAs on something called the Navajo flu, which is what they call the Hantavirus now. And they said that if you go near, in the PSA, if you go near the mouse or mouse dropping, you can get really sick, and it's usually fatal because of the complications that come from it. So as soon as I realized that there was mouse droppings within the shed and that they were fresh, I recommended to my family to steer clear of it until I can properly clean it with Clorox and make sure it's safe, which I actually did not get around to doing because during that time also we started having problem with mice entering the house and roaming around, so I had to start dealing with that problem by setting up mouse traps within the house and getting rid of food sources most of it was dog food that my brothers, or my brothers and my nieces and nephews tend to do. They keep dog food storage bags in a manner where it would be easy for mouse to get into them. It's basically feeding the mice. It's the way it was done. And there would be like old, worn out clothing that we stored outside, and a lot of, like I said, wood piles. So it was a slow process of getting rid of those and maintaining that the mouse were caught and disposed of properly, which I did all by myself. I made sure that my nieces, nephews, or any of my family members were not in the room as I was doing that, just as a precaution. And I made a habit of spraying down the area and most of the floor with the Clorox at that time. I think when I get right down to it, there was only one incident I can think of after that was before then, when I initially realized that the mouse droppings were in the shed. When I actually started feeling sick, I mistaken it for a cold or something of that nature, where it was just like, okay, I got, I just don't feel well. My body feels kind of sore, and because of the cleaning, I thought that maybe I just overworked myself. My arms were sore, my legs were kind of sore, and I had a slight headache. I was thinking maybe those cleaning fluids I was using, maybe I used a little too much Clorox, and I gave myself a headache or something like that. So I didn't think much of it at first, the first couple of days. Then it started getting worse with, the slight fever, then some the chills, feeling cold, and the body ache started to worsen. And I was thinking, I think I got sick. I think I caught a cold, because it's the only time that I would actually feel like that. Then it gradually got a little bit worse. I started noticing a burning sensation in my lungs around that time. And I was thinking that I've had pneumonia, I've had asthma, I've had bronchitis. I know what it feels to feel like. That's what it feels like. I feel my lungs burning. But as I think like 7 or 8 days into it, maybe less, it got to a point where it was just really affecting my breathing, to a point where I was wheezing and gasping for air while I was sleeping. And the fever got really high to 101.9 is where I decided to go to the hospital. When I went to the hospital initially said that I had contracted a viral pneumonia. That's what they said. Because they tested my lungs, and they did the throat swipe and all that other stuff. And they said it was a viral pneumonia, and that I just need to relax a little bit to see if it will pass. If it gets any worse, let them know. But I didn't think it was a pneumonia or viral pneumonia. It just didn't feel. It felt a lot different. It actually felt more severe, or at least much more severe than what I've gotten before. And I took the medication they gave me, which was like a painkiller and some sort of like antibiotic. And what that did was it actually got rid of my fever, but my breathing problem got worse. I was so tired. For no reason, I'd get up and I'd just be winded. And I'd try standing, and it would be so difficult just to stand. I'd be staggering and stumbling. And it was at that point where I was like, I am not feeling well. Like, this is not normal, and I need to get to the hospital. But being stubborn, I decided to drive myself to the hospital. I made most of the way to the hospital, and instead of going to Chinle like I used to do, I decided to go to Fort Defiance to see if they would say it was something different. And I actually managed to make it close to the Crystal Turnoff, which is near Navajo. Before I got to a point in my breathing where I was very dizzy, and I was starting to get confused on why I was even going over there. And I had my mom come with me just in case I wasn't able to drive anymore. And I told her I can't drive anymore, I need to get driving. And I started to feel nauseous and very lightheaded. The room was still kind of spinning, and my breathing was at a point where I was just gasping for air. And when we got to Fort Defiance, it took almost all my strength to actually get out of the vehicle, and I was parked as close as I could to the emergency doors, and I could barely just make it into the front entrance. And I told my mom to get a wheelchair because I cannot make it to the waiting room. And my mom, of course, seeing that I was basically about to collapse on the floor, got the emergency staff there, and they put me in a wheelchair, and they started running tests on me. And during that time, they actually started thinking that maybe I wasn't Navajo pneumonia because they checked my oxygen saturation. And I was at I think it was 79. And they put oxygen on me, and they had to turn on, but that was not helping. They barely made it go up to an 81, and it was dropping lower and lower. I would say probably like the half hour, it would drop about. It was starting to drop pretty quick after a while. And the doctors were starting to get confused because they did not know what to think. So they started doing taking blood. And they found that my white blood cells were like way over what they should be. So they initially thought I had septic. And they were going to start doing the procedures for that. And my mom told them that I was handling mouse droppings and dealing with the mice traffic during the time. And there was then that they suggested that I might have contracted Hantavirus. And they, since they were taking my blood anyway, they did a test on it. I tested positive. But right after they got that test, my respiratory system began to fail. So around that time when they actually got the test back and I tested positive, my oxygen level was at 71. And they said I probably had about an hour to 2 hours to get something done, or else my body wouldn't function. My respiratory system would completely have to shut down again. so they actually had to do an emergency, transport to Albuquerque. I think it was Union. And I remember that day because it was really windy, and they knew if they took me by the ambulance, I would probably just die before I even get there because my oxygen at that time had dropped from 69 to 65. And at that point, I was actually at the point where it just become really incoherent. You know what's going on, but you don't know what's going on at the same time because of that level of oxygen. But I can understand and I can hear everyone, but just overall, what everyone's name was during that time is still quite a blur. So it was interesting how sneaky the hantavirus is because it's so easy to mistake it for something else until it gets to the point where it just, you're like, oh yeah, your lungs are not working. It was after then that when they got me to Union, they told me that there was like only one thing they could do, which was the ECMO. And they said it has a really good success rate, but they're not going to sugarcoat it because of the state I was in. My chances were good, but it would be fight. So that's what the doctor said. And I wish I could remember his name because everything after that it's actually taken all of them to do, and that's something my family actually don't like talking about. It was really painful moment for me. But yeah, it's amazing how it got to the point where I thought it was cold and it turned out to be hantavirus. Something else. After I was put on ECMO and they started doing what they were doing to keep me alive, I am told by my family that I did actually run into some small complications other than the respiratory failure. They said something happened with, I think either my kidneys or something that does cleaning with my blood. One of those ones started to fail because my body did not respond well to some of the medications they were using to try and help me get better. And also because of the liver damage, or not liver, the kidney damage that was done, and because of the ECMO process, where they actually have to do some, pretty much where they hook you up to the machine, it causes a higher risk of forming blood clots within the body. So they have to look out for blood clots that way I wouldn't get like a stroke or something like that. So that was a constant process of doing that, and the constant process of them having to turn me to make sure I don't form what they call it, bed sores. And I believe I was in the ECMO process for close to a month. And during that time, I developed what they call muscle atrophy. Basically, I lost all the muscles in my limbs, so when I woke up, my hands were so skinny because I haven't used them for a long while. And basically, as soon as I woke up, they had to make sure I knew what was what, so they my mom was there. They asked me if I remember her, or I know who she is. I remember that. And what they did after that was they actually kept me hooked up on that machine for about 2 weeks, and that one was just constantly basically feeding me distilled water, liquid stuff, and the recovery process was quite long because I had to learn how to use my hands again first. I wasn't allowed to eat solid foods or any type of foods at all for the first 2 months because of the amount of deterioration in my muscles where I would actually just end up choking on anything that I would put in my anything that I would eat because I was just too weak at that time. And it was, I would say about a month before they would even start doing the physical therapy on having me practice writing with my hands to rebuild like the instruments. Then after that, they started having me kind of like communicate more with doing like eye tests and stuff like that to make sure my head started working. And almost a month and a half after that, they started working on the legs, trying to get me to stand on my own and sit up. And even then, it was very difficult to talk because I had this tube in there. And it wasn't until I was strong enough to actually move my hands around and kind of wiggle that they said they could take it out. But even after they took it out, they had to allow for it to heal, which took a long time. It took like 3 months, I think. And they said they couldn't really sew it because it was right here, so they had to let it heal naturally. But they did sew the parts where they hooked it with the which is right here. And pretty much. And it was basically that they had to teach me how to eat food again. They started out with liquid stuff first, you know, like applesauce, thickened water, which you kind of almost get used to. Then basically, they gave you water, or it was mixed with something where it made it really slimy and gooey, which was, I did not know they had that. And I remember when I woke up, I was so thirsty. I asked for water, and they gave me that. I was like, what is that? But they couldn't give me water, so what they did was they would dip water in a sponge, and they would kind of run it across my lips so I can taste the water. And they would give me crushed ice. Just a little bit though. And I was constantly, they had to make sure that all the, my foods were being distributed properly. It was just, that was the longest process I remember. Then they had to constantly check my blood. I mean, I think they checked my blood like 3 times a day, and it was a schedule, so it was like 3 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning, then like at like 10 or something like that. So I think that's why my sleeping schedule is long, because I wake up at 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock even if I don't want to, I wake up at 3 o'clock. And And it was interesting because talking to some of the staff, the medical staff, the ones that took care of me, some of them were actually very, I wouldn't say, I guess I should surprised, but also relieved that I actually did make it because of the amount of work they put into making sure I did survive. And they just were full of questions about certain things, especially like, how does it feel to be on it? And it just feels like simple things. Once I got to the point where I was able to eat soft foods, they pretty much just started checking more on my oxygen and stuff. And they slowly started disconnecting me from that to the point where I was able to breathe on my own. And that's when they started, once I was able to breathe on my own, once they started disconnecting me slowly from all the life support stuff, they started moving me a little bit more. They started me having to get up. Just getting up was an exercise. They help me up and they lay me back down. They say, that's enough for you. And they come back like, they come back like every, I would say like 2 times a day for 30 minutes, just getting me to sit up, lay down, sit up, lay down, to the point where then they started stretching my muscles. Instead of working it, they started stretching my muscles, pushing my legs up and down like this. And they had the physical therapy people to actually just work on having me sit up and stand up from the bed. And that took about 2 weeks of actual trying to get done, to the point where I still wasn't allowed to get up because they had the whole alarm system set up, so if I even move my foot off the bed, the alarm will go off. And people were coming, well, you're not supposed to be getting off the bed. Wait, my foot fell off, I can't. That's the other thing, is that because of the muscle atrophy, when my, let's say my leg used to fall off the bed all the time. So I would just, my feet would just dangle right there for like, just until like the nurse came by and checked on me. He was like, yeah, my foot fell off again. And in a way, I guess that would be how I did my exercise. My feet fell off, and I would try like almost the entire time to move it back onto the bed. But according to the medical staff, I actually did start recovering quite quickly after that. And I would say within a month, I regained most of my vocal stuff. Because of the cut, speech was difficult, but I could communicate through writing and grunting. So I was pretty much just grunting for like almost 2 months. And even after they removed the tubes, I still had like a very weak voice, and I pretty much kind of had to, they put like a bandage over it, so I had to hold it with this to make sure that no air escaped. Then I would be talking, and it was so frustrating because communicating was such a chore that I didn't want to communicate most of the time. Yeah, that was the one thing that they did. And once they got me to the point where they knew I was able to stay alive on my own, which, without the help of machines, they moved me to another place, not intensive care, but, somewhere else. And that's when they intensified their physical therapy on my legs slowly, and I started doing that. Once I got to the point where they knew I could eat, or not eat, but where I could actually, look motivated to do physical therapy, that's when they moved me to yeah. So I can begin the official physical therapy thing, and that was basically about a month of basically just the normal things we take for granted: getting up from the chair, sitting down, walking from one end to the room to the other, just bending over and picking up the small thing. I mean, just like picking up this bottle of water took me hours to get done safely, and that was the thing that they always wanted me to do, is to do it safely. And just standing was considered an exercise, because they would have me stand up between like two bars, and they would I would have two assistants, and one would stand in front of me, one would stand back of me, and they would say, stand under your own power for like 30 seconds. And they would count it down, and they would hold me again, and it was just doing that every day, until I was able to actually, they had like I wouldn't say an obstacle course, but it was basically little cones, and I had to walk in a zigzag around it. Once I was able to do that, they said I was well enough to get going. But that was a lot of work, and even during that time, I was in a wheelchair the entire time because I wasn't strong enough to walk. So I regained my muscle strength in my arm, but I was still weak. And because of the damage to my kidneys, it threw off a lot of the chemicals in my body, so I had an imbalance of salt or sodium. So they had to have me take a lot of medicine during that time. I remember sodium tablets, which I thought was funny, because they always tell you not to eat salt. And they would give me these like gigantic tablets of salt. And I just thought that was interesting. And they gave me some blood thinners, what did they call it? The thickness of the blood. It was like, I don't know what to call it, but my blood thickness or coagulating was way off. So they had to give me blood thinners for that. And they actually had to constantly make sure that I took those, because they didn't want me to. I still had like a good chance of getting a blood clot, because they're supposed to wait like 3 months, 6 months after you having the surgery or the stick. So they had to constantly do that, just constant medication. I had to go through all my checkups. And even during that time, when I was able to walk, just, small steps, like 3 or 4 steps from there, and doing all that stuff, and just barely getting my feet around. My appetite was almost non-existent. I was actually not very hungry most of the time. I could probably go maybe I actually didn't really eat too much. I mean, I ate some, but then because of the blood thinners I was taking, I think it was warfarin and stuff that they were giving me. Because of that, I wasn't allowed to eat green foods. Anything with they kept saying kale. I don't know what kale is. I remember pickles, lettuce, spinach, anything that's really deep green. Apparently, work with them don't get along. It actually causes blood clots. I can mix those two together. They had to watch my diet. All peanuts too. I can eat peanuts. So actually, my diet has changed because of that. Because I wasn't allowed to eat that for almost a year now. I kind of don't eat those now. Just because it's become a habit. But yeah, I had to watch my diet. I had to make sure I didn't eat certain foods. And if I did eat, like let's say a salad, they said it had to be the same amount every day to make sure it doesn't throw my body out of whack or something like that. So it was always a constant struggle up until I was discharged from Lovelace. And even after then, they had to constantly check to make sure my incisions were looked after. And they actually had to remove the stitchings on my neck in Fort Defiance. And some of the stitchings in the other places they hooked up the machine. And that wasn't actually able to be done until like 3 months after I was discharged. So I think it was in September or November when they actually got around to removing those ones. And they said I was completely healed up. But then even then I had to constantly make sure that those cuts were stayed clean and were maintained. And I didn't really receive a good deal of how I was able to function fully until I was in December, the end of 2017. So 2018 was like a whole other thing of me just making sure that I make all my appointments, make sure that all my stuff is okay. And it was a long process of just making sure that the damage done by, having my respiratory system failing and my liver or kidneys. One of those ones failed. Also, I was yellow because of my liver failing. So I was pretty much like a really yellowish color. My nails and my eyes were yellow, and I didn't turn back to normal color until around December. That's when I actually did. That's when I actually considered myself well. When I actually turned back to when I wasn't yellow anymore. Even now, I still have to have checkups. Blood tests and stuff like that, just to make sure everything's okay.
Do you remember what your SpO2 was in Chenli?
Around that time, it was actually still normal. They actually didn't notice too much wrong with me. That's why they thought it was just like a normal cold or whatnot, and it wasn't until like a couple days after that I noticed the other symptoms before then. So before then, it was actually kind of like, it wasn't like, it wasn't at 98, but it was kind of almost at the low level where it was like 95, 93, but that was still okay. It was abnormal, but they thought it was because of the bronchitis or the pneumonia that they thought it was, but they didn't think it was too big of a deal, so they said just take the medicine we prescribe you, and if it gets worse, come back.
Do you think that if you had a portable pulse oximeter at home, you would have monitored your oxygenation?
Yes. I I actually like doing that just because even when I went to the urgent care in Port Defiance, I always like keeping my eyes on those types of readings, like saturation level and even my blood pressure and stuff like that, just to see. And I actually like monitoring that type of stuff, just for my own amusement.
I'm curious to know, have you experienced sort of residual effects from having the disease, and if you've experienced any sort of cognitive decline from the low oxygenation that you've had for so many hours and being on ECMO, and if anything slowed you down and you can attribute that to suffering from the disease?
Cognitive. Yeah, I would say that I think because of being in ECMO and I forgot to mention this, but because of some of the complications, I did go into cardiac arrest several times while I was in ECMO, and obviously they weren't able to, get my heart started back again. But it did affect how I do respond to certain things, and I know, sometimes I feel like I'm not my own self because I know how I respond to things now is different than how I would have 2-3 years ago. And it's kind of like getting used to being a different person, even though you kind of go like, I'm still me. And it's still an adjusting process where I'm going like, and it's an adjusting process where it's like I shouldn't be thinking about how I was, and I should think about how I am now. And now, 2-3 years ago, I used to be very impulsive. Now I tend to just take a step back and look at things a little bit slower. And my reaction and cognitive functions are actually a little bit slower than what I would have been 2-3 years ago. And residual stuff, yeah, I do have to take medicine for the nerve damage done to my leg because of the ECMO. So for almost a year now, I've been taking something for the nerve damage called gabapentin to help with the pain in my leg. It's not like a overwhelming pain, but it's like a constant, like your leg is asleep, but you can feel the pain also in my leg, and it's more in my right leg than my left leg. So this leg is always feeling like it's asleep, and this side's okay, but even then, I'm still adjusting to. I can feel the pressure from something touching my leg. I can't really feel it like I would have during that time. And obviously, gabapentin has its own little like side effects as medication. So dealing with that, and sometimes I just have to go like, do I want to take the gabapentin and deal with the side effects, or do I just want to stay up most of the night being annoyed by my leg and have less sleep? So I have to take melatonin to help me sleep also, because I cannot sleep without assistance. For the longest time, the doctors used to, because I love coffee. I love coffee. I can drink about 48 ounces more of coffee a day. They used to say that caffeine was the cause of that, but even when I wasn't drinking coffee, I always had problems sleeping. And I think because of the hantavirus, it made certain problems that I've learned to deal with and ignore more noticeable or prominent. People notice it now because I'm posting a lot now. So they'll go, oh, you're having trouble sleeping. I was like, I always had trouble sleeping. I've gotten used to, functioning on like maybe 5 to 4 hours of sleep a day, which is usually how I used to do things. But now people go, oh, you're not sleeping again. I'm like, yeah. But I have medication for that now, and it's a new process for dealing with some of those after effects. And some of the residual stuff is actually beneficial because I used to smoke tobacco, and because of the health problems and stuff, I actually stopped smoking tobacco for almost the entire time I've been back. So. And I haven't had any tobacco since. It has its benefits, I guess. I mean, it's an excuse not to. I go, do I want to, I just need to go, I had respiratory problems before tobacco caused respiratory problems. I don't want to deal with that, so I'm going to stay away.